And the principles that have been the cornerstone of peace, prosperity, and stability on this planet for more than 75 years were at risk of being shattered. 1 year ago, the report, Kyiv stands strong. Kyiv stands proud. It stands tall. And most important, it stands free.
Now, the US is in full tax season. They're in full swing this year. It kicked off January 23rd, everybody. Not only that, but the IRS will be receiving and processing tax returns from companies and individual taxpayers for the fiscal year of 2022. So that means people can get stimulus pretty fast. If you don't ask me, well, here's the reason why. At the very least, the earned income tax credit reduces the amount of tax owed. At best, the low-income people who have little or no income tax liability can receive the total credit in the form of a tax refund. But many states are also sending and creating new tax credits to provide extra inflation relief to their residents. The Connecticut governor has recently held a news conference to announce a new budget proposal that he will present to the General Assembly this month. This proposal will include a plan to increase Connecticut's earned income tax credit from the current rate of 30% to the federal rate of 40%. Increasing the rate will provide an additional $45 million in state tax credits to approximately 200,000 qualifying low-income people. Above the amount they are currently receiving under the program, people can get a lot more. Families will generally receive 95% of all the earned income that the tax credit dollars creates. And this is just one of the several tax relief measures that Governor Lamont will include in his upcoming budget proposal. Early this month, he announced it will include a plan to restore the pass-through entity tax credit to its original level, enabling small business owners to save money by claiming a credit that's even larger than the returns. The governor plans to announce additional tax relief measures, including those targeted towards the middle, lower class workers in the coming days, everybody. And key economic indicators such as retail sales and historic job gains are painting the picture of a robust economy that shows few signs of slowing down. But smaller than expected drop in January inflation has some economists worried that the Fed is going to prolong its interest rate hikes, which could tip the economy into recession that pulls millions of people out of work. That's not good, folks, because the CPI, a key gauge of inflation, has fallen for several months in a row, dropping to 6% annually in January, and markets had been expecting the CPI to land at around 6%, cueing a chorus of economists who want the Fed to press ahead with its rate hikes. While the Fed says it's pursuing a soft landing, meaning lower inflation without a serious recession, it expects the rate hikes to boost the unemployment rate by at least a percentage point, if not by a percentage point, then by 2 percentage points as well. I also want to add on this. Data is sure to worry the Fed officials who want consumers to spend less so that companies are forced to bring prices down. The US economy added 500,000 jobs in January, blowing the expectations, but can they do it again? We have a 10 news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SI and SDI. Here is the most important fourth stimulus news that you have to know. The federal government has reached a deal. Stimulus details have been finalized. If your state sent a new extra stimulus this year, you can get another one as well. Inflation has been hurting millions of consumers since 2021, and while things are looking better in that regard now than they did before, January's inflation report contains some less than stellar surprises. Because in January, the CPI, which measures changes in the customer and cost of consumer goods and services, rose 0.5% from December. That's a pretty big jump from last month. It also explains why so many customers are still racking up debt on their credit cards and struggling financially. Everybody, here is the latest news about the fourth stimulus payments from President Biden and the White House. There is a ton of news about this information. There is a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check that you guys have to know. There's a whole bunch of developments being made on Capitol Hill, as well as with the White House and President Biden. And to be honest with you folks, I think that President Biden has to do more for the American people and send out stimulus checks right away. With inflation rising, with the cost of living going up every single day, and with gas prices on the rise, it's time for President Biden to do something about this and send out the fourth stimulus check as soon as possible. If you guys agree with me, then be sure to watch until the end of the video because we have a ton of news to cover. And remember everybody, the whole goal of this channel is to provide you with the most up-to-date and reliable stimulus check information because I want to make sure that you guys get your stimulus check right when it's sent out. So if you guys have the time, be sure to watch this important video. A huge day is coming very soon. Now, consumer sentiment estimate, everybody, had fallen to a record low of 50 in June. That's when the gas prices hit historic highs across the country. But the continued decline in fossil fuel costs since then has allowed consumers to feel a little more optimistic. So while the new survey showed that respondents don't expect high prices to go away anytime soon, consumers said they're expecting to hit 4.6% over the next 12 months and as well as 3% within the next 5 years. This means that it's the lowest levels recorded so far this year. Inflation also hit 8.3% for the 12 months ending in August. And while that's down from the recent 12 months, decades high inflation has also seeped into every corner of Americans' lives, everybody. And they have also eaten away at pay gains. This has pushed the Federal Reserve to embark on a series of unpunishingly high rate hikes in order to slow the economy and bring down inflation. And that's something that we don't want to hear, everybody. That's not good. The Fed officials have grown anxious about inflation and becoming entrenched in the United States. So while prices are rising in almost every sector of the economy, some products have experienced more significant price increases than others. At the grocery store, for example, I am sure you guys have seen the price hikes in everything from food to water. The price of eggs is nearly up 40%, for example. That's where it stood last August, and while the price for other materials trails close behind, having jumped 40% over that time. Still though, many prices continue to climb sharply since businesses face a host of heightened costs tied to supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, as well as distribution costs. Now folks, gas prices are dropping for nearly everybody in the country, but they remain stubbornly high in California, where the state officials are blaming oil companies this time and reminding voters like yourself that relief is on the way in the form of tax rebates scheduled to arrive in weeks. And they're not lying. Stimulus checks are arriving in weeks. Experts say that factors to blame for the high cost of gas in California, standing at more than $5 a gallon, includes fuels and problem at the refineries. That supply the state as well higher taxes. So more regulations and the same global issues are driving up the global market, everybody. This is causing gas prices to increase. That's only what President Biden is saying.
Space the next few years, supplemental payments will be made, $3.4 billion this year, additional supplemental payments to pay down those liabilities. And you'll see over the forecast period an additional $7.6 billion. Here's the number you've been waiting for, this surplus. Projected operating surplus for the state of California in the May revisions, just shy of $100 billion, simply without precedent. No other state in American history has ever experienced a surplus as large as this. In fact, this is actually significantly larger than last year's operating surplus, around $75.6 billion.
When the crisis first began, many people lost their jobs or saw their income take a notable hit. And many of those who didn't have savings quickly fell behind their bills, including their rent payments. Now that there's no longer an eviction moratorium in place, tenants who are behind on rent are desperate to get caught up to avoid losing their homes. But those who have yet to apply for federal rent relief funds may be out of luck. Unfortunately, that's not the case for many residents in the state of Connecticut. The state says it will continue to process existing applications for rent relief until it runs out of